The Senate dismissed both articles of impeachment against Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas and ended the trial. Senate Democrats argued that the articles were unconstitutional, while Republicans argued for a full trial. President Biden called,
of course, living off the government. Free housing, free food, free medical care, and the whole 9 yards. They want the socialist dream. And they believe that it's our job to provide that to them while they don't do anything to deserve it. So what's really going on, though, right? Because, again, there's a lot of different media with different takes on exactly what the situation is. Well, let me show you the real information. Basically, what's happening right now in New York, the city is negotiating. There's a few sides of it, so this is one of them. The city is negotiating a new vendor for migrant services. They have a whole bunch of them. They had some issues with one of them. And, they're being offered, of course, some new handouts, the illegals, and they're also establishing a new local system through the government to give services to the illegal immigrants. So there's a few different parts to this. Here's the New York City Council on the new service they're providing to illegal immigrants. The New York City Council official website says this. They say today, New York City Council Speaker Adriana Adams announced the members and structure of the new arrivals strategy team. Remember, folks, new arrivals or newcomers. This is the new phrase they're using for illegal immigrants, illegals or illegal aliens. They call them newcomers. That is the new, phrase they're using to describe these individuals. And so the new government agency to deal with them is called the New Arrivals Strategy Team. And they describe it as a diverse set of experts to improve the overall response to the recent immigration of our newest New Yorkers by developing solutions that promote their successful integration and economic contributions to communities across the 5 boroughs. Maybe that includes, for example, the IRS programs to tax stolen goods. Because, of course, when you steal things now, the IRS wants a cut of that. It's actually in the IRS documents now. You have to actually write off on your taxes, declare any goods that you might have stolen, because the IRS wants a cut of it. Maybe that's what they mean by, contributions to communities, right? Maybe. But they continue adding, the new arrivals strategy team will aim to evaluate the government and nonprofit response to this latest wave of migration and identity shared priorities for immediate action and long-term planning to best integrate newcomers and improve supportive services for all New Yorkers.
The hell with Americans.
This is the New York City Council, folks. And they say this. This is an exact quote, according to Speaker Adriana Adams. This is one of local officials here. She says, quote, in the past 2 years, tens of thousands of people have come into New York City in search of safety and a better life. Remember, by the way, it's not even tens of thousands. It's well over 100,000 in New York City. But she continues stating, managing their arrival and supporting their success has come with challenges, exposing long-standing deficiencies in our social safety net. She means the social welfare system. She means there's deficiencies in our ability to give free handouts to criminals. And these people are criminals by breaking the law of the country by entering in the first place, or by defrauding Americans by, again, lying about their countries of origin, right? Deficiencies in our social safety net and delivery of city services. She wants to create basically like more of a welfare state that goes above and beyond basic services, because they're already being given free everything.
How
free
much
housing,
money
literally, right?
they
Free
get
housing,
paid?
free food, free medical, things that American citizens don't get. They're even giving them like $10,000 prepaid credit cards. That's what they're giving them. And for the illegal aliens, that's not enough. Because what's happening is that not all of them are getting the luxury housing. Some of them were put, for example, in temporary housing where they were sleeping on cots. Others are getting 5-star hotel rooms. And because there's this equality of outcome in this case, where some of them are getting better accommodations than others, the ones with lesser accommodations are very unhappy about it. They're saying, why are we not getting 5-star luxury hotels? And you've seen maybe some of the videos of them complaining about the quality of the food because they're being given free food. They say the food is not good enough. They want us to give them better free food. So I'm not joking. This is also one of the big complaints. And so the New York City, of course, is trying to address these long-standing deficiencies in our social safety net and the delivery of these city services, in the exact words of this official. And she continues stating, there's also been a lack of collaboration with valuable partners at all levels towards solutions, which has been an impediment to the city's progress. Immigrants and their contributions have always been a central part of what makes New York City special. And it's critical we get this right for people seeking asylum in our city and all New Yorkers. That's the New York City Council, folks. And it continues noting the new arrival strategy team, this new thing that they've formed in New York City, has 3 different components. This is an advisory board, 9 cohorts of stakeholders representing over 75 organizations, and council staff. So in other words, it's public-private partnership. You have, of course, this advisory board, which is going to be like basically political activists, I assume. You're going to have stakeholders, like stakeholder capitalism of 75 different organizations like NGOs and nonprofits and woke organizations that are going to be getting taxpayer money in order to find out how to better provide services to people who are violating our laws. And of course, New York City Council staff, who, by the way, are more extreme than even the elected officials like, the governor or the mayor. The local city council in New York is crazy far left extreme. Above and beyond, like, they make Eric Adams look like Donald Trump. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they make him look really conservative by comparison. But it adds that the cohorts across several issue areas will meet over the next several months to identify priority policy recommendations to address immediate and long-term needs. The advisory board will provide guidance and expertise on actualizing change, meaning they need to come up with ideas and make them happen, and implementation of each cohort's priorities, all 70-something of them, right? They know that council staff, these radicals in charge of things, will contribute research and operational support, as well as manage the release of a series of reports that outline strategies and action steps for achieving the identified solutions. In other words, folks, this is your tax dollars hard at work in New York City. As you, of course, are paying into the system, and as the city is going bankrupt, by the way, they've decided to focus their priorities on servicing the hundreds of thousands of illegals flowing in. Tens of thousands in New York City. I believe there's well over 100,000 total that are even known. Now, look, in other words,
no wonder they want to take money from Trump.
City of New York City they've made a new program to service the illegal immigrants.
Being done to be able to change it. If it's not true, why is that not true?
Thank you, Senator Langford, and I appreciate trying to stay on that timeline. I appreciate that. For those of you who weren't here, our colleagues are all trying to. Everybody wants to ask questions. Everybody is scheduling tightly, so if you try to stay to your time, I would appreciate that. Senator Romney, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, in the last 3 1/3 years, during your term, there have been more illegal aliens released into the country than under the 4 prior presidents combined. I know there may be some in the country that applaud that, but I believe that, frankly, if President Biden is to be turned out of office, it will be largely because of that failure on your part and his part as the person who's responsible for policy. I believe, and I think the great majority of the American people believe, and that reason why I think it's such a political bomb for the president, that this is an extraordinary crisis and failure. Do you believe that the numbers that you saw that Senator Johnson put up, the huge increase in the number of illegal aliens being released into the country, that is a crisis and a terrible problem?
I have a senator.
That's a yes or no.
Senator, I have said previously that it is a crisis, and it is something that we work to address every single day.
Good, thank you. Let me turn. The House, I believe, House of Representatives, took action to underscore the extent of this crisis, and the Democrats decided they didn't want to spend more time talking about that. But I'm going to ask you a couple questions. They're not intended to be hostile, but the House said that you lied when you said to the House in a hearing that the border was secure. Why did you say the border was secure? Was that a lie? What do you mean by that?
Senator Romney.
For Around the Clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download it.
Right his ass.
Stay with us and we'll bring you more in the next 2 hours.
Migrants gathered outside City Hall Tuesday morning hoping to appear at a hearing on the Black experience in the city shelter system, with some saying they were promised work visas or green cards if they showed up. Only 250 people were allowed inside for the 10 a.m. meeting, while hundreds of others who flocked downtown were left outside in the park, where footage showed them chanting and cheering, protesting, folks. The crowd was mostly made up of new arrivals, newcomers, folks, from Guinea in West Africa, and were apparently drawn to City Hall by an activist group, a source told The Post. Activist group working apparently in cahoots with City Hall. Maybe it's the same thing, though, right? Now, it says that dozens of migrants said they've been told by others in the community that they could get work visas or green cards if they showed up. And so when it says that they were protesting for green cards, it's because an activist group told them about the opening of this new City Hall program. And we would assume this activist group, probably working in cahoots with City Hall, invited them, saying that if they show up, they're going to get green cards and visas and all this other stuff. And so they show up in droves. And notably, it's only, of course, people from that part of Africa. It's the Black experience they're going for, which is ridiculous, of course, because they're not inviting, American citizens who happen to be Black. This is about illegal immigrants, but they're latching on this race narrative with it. I'll be getting more into that, though, in a bit. But of course, look, that wasn't all they were showing up for. That was what they were being offered on the side of everything else, right? That was what they said they were showing up for, only because City Hall, apparently this activist group, was telling them they were going to be giving that away for, right? But right now, basically, this is the main narrative going around in the corporate media. They just want to work. They just want green cards. These are hardworking people just looking for an opportunity. Again, that's not really true. Again, the narrative on that was formed strictly because these individuals were told if they showed up, they'd be given these green cards, but they were demanding a lot of other things. And of course, the City Hall program that this is really about is not looking at green cards, so to speak. They're looking at social services and equity and free handouts and that type of stuff. Now, again, it's partly true, but there's more to it, basically. And as we mentioned, the City Hall team, they set this up to manage free handouts and free services to illegals. And as part of that free handout program, they were also promising, allegedly through this activist group, green cards to whoever showed up at the meeting. And there were also many people who were just plain angry that they're not getting the luxury accommodations they want, at least until the city renegotiates some of the contracts with companies managing the free handout programs. This is Yahoo News, WIBB. And they say, New York City will move to end its contract with a medical services company hired to house and care for a recent influx of international migrants, following scrutiny over the firm's costly deal with the city and the quality of its humanitarian services. They want better quality, folks. Now, remember, they call it a medical company, but it was not just providing free health care and free medical programs. They were also giving free food and free housing and the whole 9 yards. This is one of the vendors New York City has gone through to provide pretty much everything to these illegal immigrants who are getting treated better than even American citizens on welfare, even better than American veterans, even better than any of us could ever hope to be treated by the government, folks. And notes that Mayor Eric Adams' office on Tuesday said the city would not renew its contract with this particular company called DocGo before it expires on May 5th, and will instead search for a new housing provider for migrants. Again, this is about housing providers, free housing, not paid housing, paid for by us, not by them. And notes the arrangement drew questions from City Controller Brad Lander, who, in receiving the contract, determined there wasn't enough detail to justify the cost, and that it wasn't clear how the company had the expertise to transport, house, and feed thousands of, quote unquote migrants. Folks, why are we transporting the illegals? Why are we giving free housing to the illegals? And why are we feeding the illegals? Why not deport them like you would normally do if people, again, illegally enter the United States? But rather than do that, they're trying to renegotiate contracts and find different vendors to provide this list of services to them. That, again, things that even Americans on welfare don't get. Now, note that news reports in the New York Times and Albany Times Union also detailed alleged mistreatment of migrants under the company's care. Mistreatment like food that is not good enough and housing that isn't luxurious enough. And they note that this includes, for example, quote, issues with health care and food waste, among other things. They're not getting good enough free health care, folks. Now, they say its chief executive officer resigned after he admitted to lying about his educational record. That seems to be a trend, by the way. And notes that DocGo currently provides care for 3,600 migrants in New York, half in the metro area and half upstate, officials said. They say the company will continue to provide services for migrants who are relocated upstate until a new vendor is picked, with the city aiming to have a new contractor by the end of the year. In New York City, officials will temporarily use an existing contract with the company Garner Environmental Services to care for the migrants. So rest assured, folks, in the meantime, it's not like they're not going to get free houses and free food and stuff like that in your tax dollar. They have another vendor that's going to be providing better services to the illegals in the meantime. So, are you getting that? New York City hired a company to give this stuff to them, right? Free housing, which, again, they get free houses, free apartments, free hotel rooms. I'll show you some of the details on that. Free medical care and other free services to the illegal immigrants. But some of the corporate media, like New York Times, have been complaining on their behalf, claiming that the free handouts the illegals are getting are not good enough. They want better quality free handouts. So the city has canceled its contract with this company, and some of the illegals who are under its programs have to go through another company for the free handouts until the city finds another contractor. And they're mad about it. They're angry. These are people who came all the way here being told they were going to get all this stuff, and it's not nice.
Get anything.
They want better things because they came here chasing that dream, folks. Not the American dream, maybe the socialist dream, but they came here chasing that promise, and it's not what we said it was. The food is not good enough. The apartments are not nice enough, and they're unhappy about it. Now, look, remember also, even the big corporate media, the ones that are, again, trying to string us along with lies and misinformation, they're now admitting that illegal immigrants are being given free luxury housing. And then, of course, there were the ones using race politics as part of the demands for free handouts, calling to, quote-unquote, uproot anti-blackness, which is the narrative City Hall was using to, again, meet with the African illegal immigrants to give them better services. Because it's not about us giving them free housing and everything else, right? That it's not good enough what we're giving them. Because in order to, quote-unquote, uproot anti-blackness, as the city council is saying in New York, we need to give them better quality free handouts. And not only that, remember that Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed that countries like Venezuela and others have been emptying out their prisons and their insane asylums to send people they don't want to the United States. He's alleging many people coming here are criminals and gang members. And, well, look, it seems like Trump could be right yet again. In fact, almost 500,000 of them are criminals, according to DHS. And I will show you that in a bit. It turns out Donald Trump was right. They've been sending criminals here. Well, everyone, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us. And as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free.
Campaign swing here in the battleground state of Pennsylvania with a visit to his childhood hometown in Scranton.
Where we come from matters.
Touting his working class roots, President Biden argues that he's a candidate for the little guy, while Trump is for the wealthy.
He looks at the economy from Mar-a-Lago, where he and his rich friends embraced the failed trickle-down policies. Scranton values or Mar-a-Lago values. These are the competing visions for our economy.
Specifically, Biden's vowing to make wealthy Americans pay more in taxes, and through that, contrast his tax policy with Trump's.
His failure starts with his $2 trillion tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest and biggest corporations.
He's
Trump
lying.
said his tax cuts for both corporations and individuals contributed to the economic growth in 2018 and 2019. And Trump also accused Biden of trying to raise taxes for average Americans when campaigning here in Pennsylvania just last weekend.
You like the fact that I got you the largest tax cut in the history of our country? And they're going to raise your taxes by 4 times. 4 times. Think of that.
Meanwhile, President Biden has insisted that he would not raise taxes for any Americans making less than $400,000. And next up, Biden will be campaigning in Pittsburgh on Wednesday and in Philadelphia on Thursday. Also highlight the importance of this battleground state, which Biden's campaign says plays a key role to Biden's re-election bid. Reporting from Scranton, Pennsylvania, Iris Tao, NTD News.